Hello everyone, it is currently 1 am in Glasgow, Scotland, and I have tasked myself to do a good Traptrix deck profile after the structure deck has been released. Currently, if you try to net deck a Traptrix deck, chances are that you are going to run into either Spax budget variant of the deck that wants some walkouts, or someone reposting that same list. I am no pack, and I am definitely not somebody who owns a lot of expensive cards. However, I have 2 years of experience with this deck now, so I think I have a pretty good idea how to optimize it and what fun things you could do with the deck. Here is my deck list. We begin with 3 copies of Traptrix Marmelio. For the longest this has been the cover card for the archetype, and it is still one of the best things that you can see in your opener. Next is Traptrix Monster. Oh, what did I say? Traptrix Mantis. Similar to Marmelio, it is a starter, but this one actually searches for monsters. And the perfect target for the search is Traptrix Arachnocampa, one of the new cards actually. This lovely card not only allows you to extend your plays, but also allows you to protect your back row, so even if you don't use it for extra deck plays, it is a great tool to have in your hand or on the field. Next we have 2 copies of Traptrix Dioneum. Personally my favorite main deck, Traptrix Monster. She allows you to reborn things from the graveyard. On normal summon she brings back another Traptrix Monster, and on special summon a Trap Hoe. However, be careful because that second effect could very easily miss timing if you mess up your chain links, and I had to actually explain this to a guy at Walkos 3 days ago. Anyways, next we run 3 copies of Traptrix Pudica, another one of the new cards. This is the Fuse Spell Searcher. It is also an excellent removal, so make sure you're aware of the card's full text. And finally, for the Traptrix lineup, we have Nepenthes. For me, this card has always been a sleeper, which has never been good enough to make the final cut into the deck until now. The reason I believe it is good right now is that it allows you to be very flexible with your other monsters. If you're not aware, Traptrix Serra, the main deck monster of the archetype, the main deck extra deck monster of the archetype, allows you to special summon Traptrix monsters from the main deck upon normal trap card activation. However, that monster must have a different name from the ones you have on the field at the time of resolution. Nepenthes, however, does not have that restriction, and together with the newly released Holotea, which we will talk about very soon, allows you to build pretty good boards on turn 1. For the rest of the monsters, we run 3 Parallel Exceeds, which is a standard inclusion in every deck that has a good Link 1 monster and also is orientated around the rank 4 plays. We also run a copy of Link Spider, just because we have a lot of normal monsters in the form of trap monsters. And then we have a single copy of Lord of the Heavenly Prison, which is searchable by Galan Granite. You could also run Nibiru instead of the Lord, but I just think it's really funny if you search this guy. And finally we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, but that can be any hand trap you think will serve you better at your vocals. Remember, always build for what you expect to see at your vocals or regionals, and not what people on YouTube say it's good for the current meta. For the spell cards, we run only 3 spell cards actually, 2 copies of Traptalizing Tune and the custom made ready Trap Trip Garden. For the traps, just move that over there. For the traps, we have 2 copies of Floodgate Trap Hole, which is pretty good against most extra deck summoning mechanics. Obviously it is not very good against fusions, because fusions can still use face down monsters, but then again it stops most link strategies. Also it's really good against like Swordshow, you can Book of Moon Moya, and even though they get the token, they can't go into their level 8 play. So yeah, a pretty good card altogether. Next we have Gravedigger's Trap Hole, or Grave Hole as they call it in the OCG. The reason why you want to run at least 2 copies of this card is because the first one you're actually going to probably use on your turn with Flesia to protect yourself from Nibiru, and the second one is for any extender that they might have on their turn. So I think it's very solid choice to at least 2, maybe 3, but I think 3 might be a bit of an overkill. Terrifying Trap Hole Nightmare for me is the most questionable card in this deck, and honestly I think it really underperforms. I never had really high hopes for this card, even when I saw it was going to be one of the new cards in the structure deck. I decided to try it out. It hasn't really served me that well. I don't really care when I see it in my opener hand. I don't really use it from Rafflesia. So I would say you could cut it for Caught by the Grave or any staple really that you think might be better again in your regionals or your vocals. And now it is time to talk about the best card from the new wave of support in my opinion. You run 3 copies of this. for sure. This card is amazing. It triggers Sera on the first turn, it builds powerful Redoer, it special summons back from the graveyard. It is just everything that the archetype needed. We also have a single copy of Shade Brigadine as a fourth worst copy of Halatea. You don't care as much if you don't draw it, but it is in the deck to remind you of the days before the structure deck, and never forget where you are going, but also never forget where you are coming from. Shade Brigadine is followed by 3 wonderful copies of Torrential Tribute. Remember, all of your extra deck Traptrix monster are unaffected by trap cards, and if you have Farfetch'd on the field, your other Traptrix monster can also survive the effect of Torrential Tribute, so this is perfect one-sided board wipe. Another one that you can run is also Needle Sealing, because you can choose when to activate it, but I think Torrential Tribute is just a bit more generic, and that's why I prefer it to Needle Sealing. And then I run 3 copies of Solemn Strike, which is the only trap that is not a normal type. Honestly, you could change it for any staple card that you think is better. I just really think that Solemn Strike is very solid choice. Next, we move to the extra deck. First, the Traptrix cards. We run every Traptrix monster for at 1 copy, except Sera. You want to have at least 2 Seras. Honestly, for the longest time I played with just a single copy because I couldn't afford a second copy of Sera, but right now when I have a playset, I say just run 2 copies. You never know what's going to happen to your first one, and you definitely want to be able to stick one on the field. So you have Traptrix Abomeras, which sometimes helps you build OTK, sometimes it's just like funny to stick it on the board, steal monsters from your opponent. I would say it's the one that comes up the least. Then you have the new one, which I have no idea how to pronounce, Traptrix Pinicua, I have no idea. It's the searcher of the deck, also could be very annoying for your opponent to get rid of. If you read the whole text, I think it might surprise you. So have a single copy in your extra deck. And then we have Traptrix Reflexio, obviously one of the best Traptrix monsters, or one of the best rank 4 monsters altogether. We run a single copy of Quaria. This is kind of your boss monster, if you want to call it, because except Sera, if you stick it on the board, it's just infinite value. You keep reoccurring your monsters, you keep reoccurring your hoes, and also please don't make fun of my accent. I know how I pronounce hoe. I know it sounds like another word. Just bear with me, okay? Then we have Traptrix Atipus. This is amazing card. One of the biggest problems for the longest time with the archetype was that you can stick a lot of monsters, but they're just like tiny. It wasn't easy to break boards, and this one allows you to not only break boards, because it could be your Dark Ruler No More or your Forbidden Droplet or whatever. It gives you a pop and also boosts all of your Traptrix with 1000 attack, as long as you have a normal trap card in the graveyard, which is extremely easy to do, as you can probably imagine with this deck, which revolves around normal trap cards. And then you have your Traptrix Sera, which is probably the best Link 1 monster ever printed. And I'm really happy that Traptrix is pushed into higher tier rogue decks right now, because I'm so happy that Sera is finally being recognized as one of the craziest monsters ever printed in the game. And then for the spice, you run my absolute favorite monster of all time, Time Thief Redoer. Probably one of the strongest rank 4 monsters that you could play, so there's no reason you wouldn't play it here, especially in a deck where you could very easily put a trap card under it as a material, which is, if you know Redoer, you know that having a trap card as a material is one of the strongest things, because it gives you basically Phoenix Wing-to-Wing Blast kind of effect. And for any new player, that's basically, what's the Wing Blast equivalent for new players? I guess Nightmare Unicorn. But yeah, so very solid option. Then you have Abyss Dweller. This is every tier's favorite card. You just run it because it is very unfair. It's a floodgate, probably should be banned, but you run it because it's a really good card. Then you have Baguska, which is a Salamangreat special here. Sometimes you just need to buy a couple turns, and Baguska is perfect at stalling games, as you probably know if you have ever played against it. Then you have Gawan Granite. Honestly, I already talked about it. You can search Nibiru with it, you can search any big rock monster from your deck. Obviously, Lord of Heavenly Prison is the target that I prefer. It's not very good, but it's funny, and I just like funny things that happen to work. You know, junk that works is probably the best way to play Yu-Gi-Oh for me. So if you feel the same way about the game, I recommend you Gallant Granite to search any big rock monster from your deck. Then we have some Lynx monsters. We have Lynx Spider just because for some reason sometimes you don't want to go into setup, but you have Parallel Exit in your hand and you've opened one of the trap monsters, and you probably know trap monsters are treated as normal monsters on the field, so you can go Lynx Spider, overlay the 2 Parallel Exits, make a rank 4 and start your plays from there. You could bait a hand trap. I don't know why you wouldn't go into setup immediately, but sometimes it just happens. So you mostly rely on your trap cards for a win condition. You don't care that much about the monsters in your extra deck, so you can afford to play one copy of Lynx Spider. Next we have IP Masquerina together with Underworld Mummy of the Close World. Great cards. I think one of my 2 favorite cards, as you can probably tell by the playmat. Like IP Masquerina is really good with the arrows, because sometimes you wanna go into Parallel Exit on turn 2 or 3 and you don't have an access to Link 1, or it's not beneficial for you to make a Link 1, so you use IP Masquerina instead, and I think that's a really good generic monster. Also IP Masquerina works really well with the rank 3 Traptrix monster, because you can just make IP with any 2 Traptrix monster. You have another insect or plant on the field, you go into Atipus, and now you have a big hard to out monster on the field. Speaking of hard to out monsters on the field, Underworld Goddess, it's very solid against Kashtira, it's very solid against any kind of towers or crooked cooked strategies that you might face at Woko, so I recommend just have one of these. It's very easy to stick bodies on the field, and most of the time you don't really know what to do with those. And finally, I don't know access code Toker, so I play one copy of Nightmare Unicorn. This is the deck. Sorry for the messy outlay, don't worry about it. I have also put a link to a YGO Pro deck list in the description of this video, so you can just check out the deck there. But this is the overall explanation. One thing that I actually forgot to mention, and this is a treat for like the people who decided to stick for the end of this video, is second effect of Traptalizing Tune. Please don't forget it. It could be very cute, because you run your Traptrix monsters at 1 copy and it just really nice to recycle them. Also sometimes you want to put back a trap hole just so you can use it with Rafflesia. I think it's a really cute effect. Please make use of it, don't use it just as a Allure of Darkness. Let me know what you like about the deck in the comments, and also what you hate about my poor country accent. And as always, if you are a friend of mine, thank you so much for your support. And if you don't know me but you still watch the video, I hope it was useful and interesting to you.